Lovely, Mary. Thanks so much. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. And my name's Pamela Roccio. I'm the Equality and Diversity Officer for West Lothian Council. And some of you will know me. I see some colleagues on screen as well. My role really is I sit within a HR team, but my role is across council, obviously sitting corporately as well as within the council, but also working in partnership with partners and communities. How do we implement the Fair Scotland duty in West Lothian? Helpfully, I've inherited a way of an integrated impact assessment process. So we include human rights, we include the Fair Scotland duty within our equalities impact assessment. We call it an integrated impact assessment. So as you know, that'll be very similar to a lot of councils where it makes sense to put the two together. Helpfully, this has meant that we look at the social economic impacts across all decision-making processes. And I know the Fair Scotland duties we all know is particularly for strategic decisions. But our process is embedded alongside the equality impacts. And I think key part of that really is that how do we proactively reduce the impacts of social economic disadvantage? And there's a lot of work that's happened prior to COVID, which has been helpful for us because we've had a lot of training. Every employee within West Lothian Council has had training on equality and diversity. And we've had a lot of training around undertaking and impacts equality integrated impact assessment process. That was hugely helpful, I think, when COVID hit, because for us it was part of what we do to actually look at those social economic impacts and then what we're going to do about it. It's similar to Claire. There's a huge amount of activity. If you go on West Lothian Council's website, very similar. We had around food distribution, digital inclusion. There was a lot of work with adult learning, with schools, which I think was obviously, similar to a lot of other local authorities that we put into place very, very quickly. And that has been hugely helpful for us to have that embedded process of looking at what we can actually do to mitigate any social economic negative impacts. I think a challenge for us in the future will be around that intersectionality, bringing the kind of accumulative impacts across services is similar to everybody else. I think we know what we're doing. We have our process very clear, but I think similar talking to a lot of colleagues is we're also looking at changing the process and reviewing our process, because I think going through COVID, it has highlighted ways in which we can make the process easier. And for us, that's an online. We're discussing about going for an online process, and helpfully, as part of the SCEN network, which is the Scottish Council's network, we've had a presentation from a couple of members and talking to members around an online form. So this might help with some of the problems and challenges that we faced. And part of that will obviously be the Fair Scotland duty. And I know we want to get to a place, when I talk to colleagues, that we all want to have that embedded across all the decision-making process, not just for the strategic. And like I say, at West Lothian, we've got that embedded in our process. I certainly think going forward as well, it's about the challenges, that data that Claire was talking about. I think at the very beginning of COVID, data was very thin on the ground. That has got much better for evidencing. In our form, like I say, we have a human rights element as well, and we have the economic and sustainability, which is something that we've been working with colleagues from Edinburgh, NHS, Middle Lothian. I know a couple of Edinburgh colleagues are here, but that's also another piece of work. So we've actually strengthened that assessment around sustainability, for instance. And I think that's also where a lot of other councils are looking at, is that process of putting the two together. Like I say, some it's within the form for us, which is kind of similar to most people as well. But I think an online version is where we want to go to in the future as well. So that's me really, Miriam. That's how we do it in West Lothian. There's a huge amount of information around our economic team, around some of the work we did about the kind of services that we put in place. There's a huge amount of detail, but I didn't think you want me to talk about that. But I certainly go on the West Lothian website and have a look at that. But that's how we make sure that the Fair Scotland duty is embedded within our process. And we've done a lot of training around this, for instance, with elected members, with senior managers, and similar to what Claire was saying, when COVID hit, that really was the opportunity for a corporate working group that I'm part of, that has strategic and members on that and senior managers on that, was for us to put that message out of make sure that you go through this process and you capture that information at the same time, because decisions were having to be made very, very quickly. So putting some of those kind of theme decisions together. But like I said, at the very beginning of when I started to speak, it was helpful for us because we've already got the social economic impacts embedded into our process. So everybody is very, very familiar with thinking about how we can provide some mitigating actions to make sure that we reduce those social economic disadvantages. And like I say, everybody did that, whether it was food distribution or a huge amount of activity.